The world is watching as Israel defends itself from continued waves of aggression. The terrorist organization Hamas launched a surprise attack Saturday, killing hundreds of Israelis. Since then, you've likely heard the stories, seen the graphic videos and pictures. A music festival celebrating peace turned into a bloody and horrific attack on civilians. Children have been beheaded, hostages have been taken. For a while, the tales of atrocities coming out of Israel and Gaza were coming in so rapidly, it may have been hard to follow. But that can be said of this entire ordeal. The war in Israel is a complex geopolitical conflict that has thousands of years and hundreds of layers to it. But for those with a connection to the area, one thing is very clear. That connection remains shaken, but still strong. Joe Paris spoke with an Israeli American watching it all unfold from Boise.
Sirens, rockets, bloodshed. These are all things that the people of Israel are used to. They're no stranger to conflict in the region. Saturday was something new, though, for many Israelis. A coordinated terrorist attack carried out by Hamas, surprising Israelis. Thousands of miles away stateside, Israeli Americans can only watch.
The last 13 years I lived by the Lebanese border. They threw rockets at us every night.
Michal Voloshin now calls Boise home, but she still is an Israeli at heart. She recalls a difference between Boise and Israel, one she noticed quickly.
It was kind of hard sleeping here because it was so quiet when we went to bed. But so obviously it was always there, but yet I felt safe there. Luckily they always had bad aim, and we were so close to the border they wouldn't try to hit us because they might hit themselves. Very Zionist parents, especially my mother, who basically raised us to move to Israel, and we moved and then my parents followed later. So grew up in Skokie, Illinois, very Jewish suburb of Chicago, moved to Israel. I loved it. I still consider it home. We lived on a kibbutz in Israel, which is a communal settlement. First down south near Eilat, and then the last 13 years up north, where there's some unrest now, right by Lebanon, and they weren't real good neighbors.
The kibbutz communities near Israel's border with Gaza is where Hamas first struck, attacking people at a music festival.
Israel in total is about the size of Rhode Island, which is our smallest state. So yes, it's tiny, but mighty.
And when you start to see the news, over the last week, what are your thoughts?
I'm horrified. I'm outraged at the cruelty that's going on. I'm upset that our intelligence didn't know it was coming. This is the first surprise war we've had for 50 years. The Yom Kippur War in 1973 was a surprise, and we had a lot of casualties then. But the cruelty of the Hamas and the endangerment they're putting to their citizens, who unfortunately suffer from this just like Israelis do. Israelis don't want to kill Palestinians, but we have no choice. And historically and now, these terrorist organizations plant their rockets and everything by hospitals, by schools, by mosques, and so when Israel retaliates, we're blowing up hospitals and schools and mosques, and we look bad. We don't want to do that. We always give warnings. They don't always tell their people because it strengthens their cause if they can report more casualties. But the initial invasion was by kibbutz Kfar Aza, which is right by Gaza. They slaughtered babies, beheaded babies.
Michal planned to be in Israel this week. The events since Saturday, though, will prevent her from going home.
I mean, there are some really strong Israeli-Arab connections within Israel. It's not as apartheid as people make it seem. I mean, where I lived up north, there was an Arab village near us, and we would go there. We had friends there. I mean, the distance makes it harder, and on the news you always see the worst of the worst. You don't see the Israelis coming together, the good side, and my mother's 92 years old. I'd rather be there with her right now.
For now, like so many, Michal can only watch from afar.
There's a phrase that's going around social media, and I've heard it said in a lot of news interviews, and a lot of Israelis are saying, Am Yisrael Chai. What does that mean?
The land of Israel shall live. Yeah.
And in the context of this, what's the meaning of it?
There will always be Israel. It will always be our home. It's our homeland. I mean, we've been there forever, and you know, families and friends are there. It's just home. I mean, that's the best word I can use for it.
The situation in the Middle East is an extremely complex situation, and to be frank, calling it complex is actually very naive. But Brian, as Americans talk about this and more people are introduced to really the Middle East and kind of the geopolitics there, it's interesting to talk about, but at the same time, there's so much nuance to this conversation between Palestinians, Hamas, Gaza, Israel, Israelis, Jews. There's so many different words that are out in the lexicon right now that these conversations can get very personal very quickly. So I would advise folks that are not familiar with this, take a look, research some of the backstory, and try to understand what's going on there, because it's not simple.
Okay, so the land of Israel shall live. How does Michal think that this is going to end? Either this current conflict or, I guess, overall?
There are complex situations in the world, and none more complex than a two-state solution in Israel and the Middle East. And for those that are unfamiliar, there are those that do support a two-state solution, which would be the state of Israel and then Gaza as a formalized Palestine. And it would be in the interest of, of geopolitics to work that out. However, there are some that are not looking through this through a political lens when they talk about the existence of Israel or they talk about the existence of Gaza or really the entire setup of the Middle East. It's complicated because you're not dealing with just politics. You're dealing with religion. You're dealing with extremism. And when you have these layers stacked on top of each other, it's very difficult to capture in a 5-minute news segment, never mind, all day here on TV.
Summing up thousands of years of history into 5 minutes is an impossibility. All right, thank you very much, Joe.